This is what the design looks like now. Let me see if I can take it out so you can see the whole thing. Yes, from top to bottom. Now, the next step would be, I have the option to now go and do the embroidery on the front, now that I know this is going to work out. But as long as I have this, I'm going to go ahead and cut out all the pieces and possibly put this on the front before I embroider the other one. So before I do that, I'm going to have to turn it over and cut away all this extra stabilizer. It doesn't need to be in the design. Some layers of it are maybe 3 layers thick. Yes, I know this particular customer wants to have it stiff, but I'll put interlining to do that. I don't need to. Careful you don't get the wrong fabric here. And the bulkiness of it also may cause problems. I'm not saying that it will, but it's very possible that it could cause some problems. This feels like a tearaway stabilizer. I think it is. Tearaways are nice. They're more expensive than cutaway, and I do use them occasionally for some things, but for most things I find I don't. Cutaway is more than sufficient. This is not a tearaway. That you can feel the difference. I think myself, and it's probably just my own opinion, but I think that the cutaway is more stable than the tearaway. The tearaway feels almost like a paper, and because it's meant to be torn away, its weave is different, and where you can cutaway, you can tear it very easily. It tears where it's very hard to tear. It's impossible to tear cutaway. You really have to cut it. So for most things I prefer to use it. If I had to tear away a lot of little areas, but I'm going to leave the basic thing here. And I'm going to cut close to these because they're going to be taken out of the design, in that this fabric will end where this design ends. And so I don't want anything sticking out beyond the I really need my other scissors for this. I'm always afraid of cutting the other fabric, and these scissors make that hard to do. You can still do it, but it's a lot harder. Especially if you lift the fabric up the way you're supposed to. just. All right. This looks, there's a little piece over here missed on this edge. Okay, so now this is going to be, what I'm going to do is I'm going to chalk the line for the, might as well do all that measuring before I have to move it and use the table for the other fabric. So where a yardstick comes in handy. So I know that I'm going to be coming down from here to here, and I'm going to probably be changing that line. The inside line is right there at this edge, so I'm going to probably be coming beyond that a little bit. And I need, my trim is about a 1/2 inch wide. Coming from here down to here, and just beyond this and this. So I'm going to chalk a line so that I know where to cut and where not to cut. So this trim, assuming this trim is in the right space, I'm just going to leave it here for now and try this side, and then again measure that 5 1/4 inches that we had before to see where this actually, where the chalk line really needs to go. Alright, so this is going to be beyond this line. If I go all the way into there, it's probably too far. So let's see here. I like my other ruler for that. I like this ruler because it has a grayed out area. It's actually purplish on the edge, which is the width of that it's a 1/2 inch, so it's pretty much the width of that. So and it's clear so I can see through it. Where the yardstick is nice for making very long line. This only goes 18 inches, so I'd have to move it and measure twice. So I'll just measure this, make sure everything's where it should be. That's 5 1/4 right there. Here it's 5, a little over 1/4. So let's put some pins here. And here is 5 and a tad bit more than a quarter. This 5 1/4 should be to here. I actually want that to cut it here. So it's a little over 1/4 over here. So let's move this in a little bit. Because here there is some room past the vine, but here it was right on the edge of the vine. Alright, so here is 5, a little over 1/4, hardly a hair, but it is 5 1/4 right at the end. Okay, so if I chalk a line right at the very edge of this trim, I should that would be beyond the, I would actually be cutting and sewing inside that trim. This would be, this trim is going to cover the raw edge, so the raw edge is actually going to be about the middle of that trim. So if I cut it here, I should be fine, well outside the area that I need. And then when I go to actually do this to sew it down, I will probably cut that extra 1/4 of an inch off. So I'll put that there. I think I'm out of blue chalk. Let's try some yellow. Oh no, let's try the other blue. Okay. And this side, I'm going to go on the outside of that line. Sticking out further than you need to here. Let's do this. And if that line isn't actually straight, remember I am going to be taking another 1/2 of an inch off of it. And I'll really straighten the line. Make sure that it's what I need when I go to actually cut that. So I can put this out of the way. And I am going to cut this out. No. I'm going to first stabilize those threads, just so that if I happen to mistakenly cut a little bit in, I won't cut, and I cut threads, they won't unravel, they won't fray, they won't embroidery. If you cut it, if I were to cut the satin stitch, for example, here, and clip the wrong satin stitch, it would come up, and I would have to glue it back down. So I'm going to glue it from this side so that if by any chance I cut something, it will not go anywhere. So I'm going to use that Loctite again. It's a piece of stabilizer, and I should have a brush somewhere. What I'm going to be what I'm going to be stabilizing with the glue is only the parts that I'm going to be cutting next to. So I don't need, lovely. So I don't need to do these in here, because I'm going to be cutting out here at this edge, and I won't be going anywhere near those. But I do need to do here, well not here, here, and this part here, and the same this part here. Those are the two areas that I need to do. And I'm just going over with some glue to hold the backs of those stitches down. If I go beyond it, it doesn't matter because I'm going to be cutting it anyway. This doesn't take long and it will dry pretty quickly. By the time I have the other fabric cut, this should be dry. I'll put it on the video or not. All right. Come on. Now you're going to be in my way. I think this glue is water soluble because I was able to clean it off the brush and the plate with just some water, which is a nice thing. The silicone glues are not. You need, well, actually with soap and water you can remove silicone. What it does is it makes it clump and then you can just pull it off. Not sure how it'll work with a brush though. Okay, I think this got this end done. Just okay. I've got everything. And so we'll try the other end now. Hear my clock going off in the background? Not my clock, it's on the wall. Used to drive the girls crazy. I actually like it because I can, because I know exactly what time it is. Every 15 minutes it makes a noise. And after a while you get used to it. Used to have, when I was a kid, we used to have a grandfather clock. It only went off every hour, but even still, kind of reminds me of that. Okay, I think that's just about got it. I did this. I did that piece there, but I'll do it again. Got a little extra glue just to places it might unravel. I don't think that will, but might as well use the glue up. Alright, so now I'll let this dry and then later I'll come back and cut it out. And then the next thing I want to do is cut out all the pieces so that I can lay them out and start putting the embroideries down. All right, I laid out. I'm going to cut the back of the fabric, but I laid the applique down on it because I wanted to see, for example, how much space there was here at the neck where these appliques go, which is fine. It's about, I want to say 2.5, 3 inches. Here at the bottom, where the templates are, again, there's about 2.5 to 3 inches below that. So it's, even though I had to shorten this design here to fit with this fabric, it looks like it's going to work. So I'm going to cut this piece out and cut the other piece and go from there. All right, I've cut out the angel section. I've also cut out the other pieces. I cut exactly on the blue line, and then I ran a new blue line 1/4 of an inch in from it. That will be my sewing line, so that the trim will cover half this fabric and half the other fabric. All right, I cut out the maniple, the chalice veil, the stole, the burst pieces and burst sides. All those aside. This is the piece I'm going to use now. This is the back. I'll use later. This is the front. So, see how this plays out here. Now this is a shoulder style because this type of cross, because of the heading on here, you can't do a chest level one. So it has to be shoulder style. I prefer the chest level, but yeah, you can't always have it your way. All right, so this would be the inside of the fabric. I mean, this would be the right side of the fabric, which is the inside of the roll. All right, this is my center following the pattern. If you don't know how to cut out, I suggest you look at my other videos on cutting out vestments. All right, so it's going to lay pretty much here. There's about, looks like 3 inches at the top, maybe 4 at the bottom. Yeah, 3 inches at the top. 4.5 at the bottom. I could make it even, but actually I like having a little bit more space at the bottom and the top. Now there's going to be trim that will come around here. That burgundy gold and gold trim that will come around here. So there actually will only be about 2 inches of space here. And the same at the bottom, there'll be 1 inch at the bottom. Can't see either, can you? There'll be about 1 inch here at the bottom of the vestment. So there'll be only about 3 inches here. And at the top. there'll be a little bit more, a little bit less actually. So I'm just laying it out, and I'm going to pin it down, and then I'm going to use stitch witchery to put it in place. And then I will take to the sewing machine and sew straight down that blue line and straight up this blue line, and I will also sew with gold thread around the edge, not the outside edge, this three-dimensional one. I'm going to also just inside of that. So I will put this down in place. I don't know that you really want to see me do that. You've seen me do this dozens of times, I think, already. Let me just do it this way. I'm going to flip this over and take the steamer seam and run this. I can see the blue through the fabric. You can see exactly where that blue edge is. And I'm just putting this right on that. So it's on the inside of the blue edge, not the outside, because that's the part that's going to get probably trimmed off after it's sewn. And I'll put some on this side as well. And of course, I don't have my iron turned on. So I will be, I'm going to put this down first with the iron, and then I'll flip it over and put it in place. And then I'll put, instead of the steamer seam, I'll put some stitch witchery underneath these sections here and steam it all down. And then I can go over and sew. It won't matter which color thread I use to sew this line, so I'll just put gold thread in and sew everything with gold, because this will be covered up with there it goes. It'll be covered up with the trim. Okay. I'm using the pattern in the fabric to find out where the center is, and that should be good enough. I don't need an exact center, because it's what your eye is going to see that's important, not the actual measurements. This steamer seam was damaged, and it just doesn't like to pull off. The edge of it the edge of the paper is a little frayed or something, and it keeps catching the glue and the stops. I have to use my fingernail to separate the glue and the paper. right at the very edge where it's right that it does that. All right. Okay, so we'll take this and put it back in place. I think I had 3 inches up here. It's good enough. And the bottom. Now it should be coming down right in between the 2 crosses. And it looks like it wants to be a little bit more that way. But I'm really going by the center of this, because I'm going to be cutting off those edges anyway. Alright, so we'll stick this down, finger stick it, and then I'll stick some stitch witchery under here. And under here. The same on this side. And a piece right here. All right, now seems to be stuck. All right. It's not quite there. That one is, that one's not. All right, so I need to hit it again. Now that's stuck. That's stuck. It's going to be a little bit more. Alright, I sewed it down. And now I'm going to cut away the extra fabric so I can put the trim down on the edges. I have to make these pieces here, but I can still put the trim. All right. Leaving about 1/8 of an inch. That side. Alright, and I'll do the other side. Okay. And always finding threads. And how many you cut, there's always more. Alright, so now we're ready for first the velvet, and then the gold trim. So I want this to lie out just outside this line, this vine. And wherever the other end is, this one also will lie just outside that vine. If I go with the pattern, this should be about where it should go. If I go with the pattern on this side, it should come a little bit there. Now let's see where we are here. So we have 5 and so 5 and Right there looks like an eighth. See what it is here. 5 and that's 5.5. This is 5.5. This is 5.5. 5.5. So we want to go 5.5 up here too. So 5. This is actually coming in a little bit. 5.25. 5 and just about a half. Tiniest bit more. Alright, so that's 5.5 right there. So I'm going to cut this and this. And stitch witchery. I'm going to have to remeasure this again afterwards. I probably should have put the stitch witchery down when I put the trim down. Okay, running on the edge of that. Okay, that looks a little off right there. Maybe having a pin that's straight would help. Okay, so there should be 5.5, 5.5, 5.5, 5.5, 5, and not quite a half. Right now, 5.5. All right. Some off the iron. little bit of stitch witchery came off onto the iron and stuck down the next time when I moved it. Alright, so this should be stuck in place. So now we get to do the other side. Let's turn this around. Okay. All right, let's try this one now. Okay, so let's measure and put some pins. Okay, so five, quite a half. That's 5 and a half. This is 5 and a half. This is 5 and a half. And this is 5 and not quite a half. Let's try it again. 5 and a half and a half and a half and a half. And I'm going to cut a little bit more off of this very end when it's sticking out. Okay. Now I need the gold. I don't know whether I should do that now or wait until I put the ready for the end pieces. think I have some 1/4 inch stitch, which is what I really need here. Don't want to use the steamer seam on this. Alright. I used to use 1/4 inch instead of the steamer seam until I found steamer seam. Okay. So we just gotta make sure it's centered in the middle of that ribbon. When I pin it that way, the velvet makes it want to move. So I'll have to pin it with the velvet. Now this is really good trim, expensive trim, so it should not shrink. I'm not going to cut that end until I make sure that it didn't shrink. I probably should test it. Let's see. I don't see it shrinking. Okay. So let's put this side down. To sand again. All right. Looks nice. All right, same thing. Trim. Is there right and a wrong to this? Yes. Trim. Stitch witchery together. Pin in place through the stitch witchery. I got 5 yards of this gold trim. It was expensive, so I didn't want to get more than I needed. I'm hoping that's enough. Normally you need about 7 yards, but I do have that other trim, the old trim, and I'm hoping that should be, that between this one and that one I should have enough. Can always get another yard. It'll hold up the whole thing, but it will be one of the last things. It'll be the edge trim. Okay, so let's take away the stitch witchery and cut the trim. Everything's centered. It feels good. All there. Now I would sew this all again. I would sew this trim down again. But I think I'm going to wait till I put the end pieces on to sew it. Alright, so that's the back. Now we get to do the front. No, actually this is the front. Now we get to do the back. Alright.